I remember a time where, you would ask your mother and you're like, okay, now some of these things seem like shaming to speak, but again, if it's my background and I lived a poor life, I might as well acknowledge, and I have no problem acknowledging. You ask for a pad and he tells you, Mwana wange, I don't have money. And I remember that particular day we had an auntie that had come. You're excited. There's an auntie has come and is telling you to go and visit some relatives. My good friend, I had newspapers and I used newspapers and I walked, for those of you that know Buguju, in Mukono, from the stage of Bishop Stage to Buguju, let me tell you, by the time I reached, I was limping, I was torn, I was bruised, in those moments, that is when it dawns on you, you really understand the true meaning of poverty. That this is actually poverty. That you stay in a place, and at some point you even go to a neighbor's place and you look at their cement, like the cemented houses. You guys have seen tiles. Back then was kanile, cement. And you look at people that have cement and say that one day, nganawe, your vision is to have cement in your house, but you stay in a house that actually has maram filled in, and I remember we used to have a stool, this Malaya Sika, in the corner somewhere. Because the best my mother could do out of the money that she had sold her cows was to build a house. Now, when she built a house, we felt like we were living in heaven, but in Maram and Malaya Sika. And we were the happiest, even when I knew that we were poor and we had less than everyone around. You know how your neighbors, and I think Diana to this date remembers, we stayed somewhere in Boyogere, we were being housed by one of the uncles, and the neighbors used to eat matoke and kawo. Guys, matoke and kawo. That was my vision. I'm not joking. I remember the neighbors were even called Jacqueline and Julie, and those two girls and their brother called Charles. Their mother was working at Sheraton. I think she was a waiter or something. And they had a grandmother who used to cook matoke and peas. And I used to dream those things. The best we could afford was me going to the shop and telling there was a senga somewhere. If people watch this on YouTube or online, some of them have usually called me. I know, I saw you when you were growing. There was a senga somewhere in Boyogere, and I would go and I wait for everyone to disappear from the shop before telling her, kati mama badda agambye, mbuno kale nera muweyo. Nera muweyo naye ajjazi kuwa nti neziri ezaaluli azujjukira. Do you see that shame? As a girl, I had admirations. I had things that I also called visions that I wanted to reach at some point. But I understood that we were poor. Okay? That even when we were evicted from one house to another, while you're gathering your things, did I tell you one day our mother got tired of our house and she said, "Akayumba kano kakoye oba kagwa kagwe." Oh, wind came. Wind came. When we were at church in Boyogere, we used to stay in Chigunga. The wind took off the roof of the house. Definitely things fell, the kids were, beaten. I don't know if Alphonse is already here, my brother, but he came and we saw him at the gate of the church and he was all filled in cement. And we were like, where are your sisters? That was, Diana was at home. And it was like, where are your sisters? They are home. Are they fine? They are fine. So we ran out of church to go and rescue the few remainings, and we end up at a witch doctor's place. Because yes, we have to be housed. Now, I'm giving you this background because I should have jumped to how do you create the wealth, how do you become rich, or but without this background, it's null and void, because some people will think, some people make or create wealth or generational wealth because they started somewhere and they built something. I built on nothing. I did not have a foundation on which to build. The foundation I had was, I was privileged that while they chased me out of school, at least my father and mother would make sure that, we send her with a quota, we send her with a way, and I applaud them because they were resilient when it came to me being in school. Because any parent would have said, we don't have enough to eat, why do we even? I've told you a story of my uncle who said, but she looks like a mature woman, why can't she get married? But my mother said, not on my watch. You're not going to end up like me. You're going to be way much better. I think she had dreams and she thought that my daughter is going to actually live a much better life. And let me tell you, I did not do it for her. Because sometimes when you do things for people, you only have enough energy to get you to the middle. But sometimes when you do it for you, you have energy to cast even further and to run further. So she said, no, not on my watch. You are not going to stop here. So I knew my place. I knew that I came from poverty. But I just want us to talk about just a bit of a few mindsets, okay, that we should be able, that I had in my own life. Because even when all those things were happening, let me tell you, I had dreams inside of me, and that is why I usually make this point or make this reference that I dreamt in the worst of places when I had no business even dreaming. Like anyone would have buried themselves. There's a girl who texted me yesterday night, and she told me that I want something to do. I have watched you on TV, and I think you have helped so many people. You can help me. But when my mother didn't have school fees, I ran away and went to my boyfriend and lied to my mother that I am working. But right now, my boyfriend promised me a job, but whenever he even if I get like a small job, he gets really bad and even beats me. And now I can't go back home, but I am looking for something to do. And I told her, first step is you go back home. Go back home. In shame, go with your head, ngo gutunuza wansi, go nga webwala, but walk back into your parents' home, because at 19, you have no business getting married. So I would have been in that predicament because I was beautiful, I was young, I was poor. I could have had, that is why I usually say that all your excuses are valid. If I made an excuse of I come from a poor background, so I want to get married early so that a man can take care of me, who would have said anything? Anyone would have said, you know what, it's a valid reason. Let her get married so that her parents can stop paying fees so that they can concentrate on the young ones. I think my mother made the wisest of decisions by saying that if their sister is fine, there is no way they will never be fine. And she pushed me to the best of her knowledge. But even when she pushed me, inside of me, my environment and where I grew up from did not define me. It did not define me. It did not kill the light inside of me. It didn't. That when I got something to do, because my first ever job was at Prayer Force Africa. So the best decision my mother ever did was to send me to Prayer Force Africa. And I understood it later that Tim made a communication through someone and told them that, you know what is Hilda doing? She's in her vacation. And they told him, she's not doing anything. And she was like, why can't she come and pray? So I end up at Prayer Force. But I would be diligent. You know, someone who thinks, oh, I am beautiful. Let me tell you, omanyo agamba nti akanafa n'engombe tekagiwulira. Ng'obwavu bwakwezinzeeko ne bwe bakuwa omulimu togukola. Yeah. Ng'okulemererwa kwakwezinzeeko. Laziness will be your friend. You will find every silly excuse to make sure that you opt out of your success journey. Every silly excuse. Because there is no one that is living a drama-free life. We are all battling drama left, right, and center. But some of us are saying, you know what, dodge here, catch here, but we are going. We are still dribbling our balls. But sometimes some of us just reach somewhere and we choose to give up and we are like, I don't think this ball is ever going to get into that goal post. So I might as well just sit down and give up. That light never died inside of me. And I just want us to read just a bit. There's a story of Gideon. We will not read it, but the story of Gideon. When I thought about my own story, it related so much with him. And how small he saw himself, and how he even hid himself and did not want anything to do. But when God comes to him, he has that exchange, and he's like, but I come from the smallest tribe, okay? I come from the smallest tribe. And in me, I understood that creating wealth, or the journey of wealth, starts with your cognition, with your mindset. For me, it started with my mindset. It started with wanting to learn. It started with wanting, the curiosity of wanting to open the door. Where does this one lead? If it's not leading anywhere, when I opened the door of relationships and I saw it was not taking me anywhere, close. When I opened, as in, I was so curious that I wanted to know what happens behind every door. Some of us, we are in places, just like Gideon, we're like, you know what, I can't do anything. I come from the smallest, clan, and I am here. This is the last meal. I'm threshing this wheat, and I'm in the wine press. We are even hiding. There's a civil war happening out there. These people are out there to get us. Do you know what God told him? He called him the exact opposite of what he was feeling, okay? He called him the exact opposite of what he was feeling. He told him he was the mighty man. But for him, he felt he was the smallest, from the smallest tribe, and there is no change that he could do. He was just there to thresh, and he was there in the wine press. They were hiding, and they just wanted to survive, barely to survive the day. And God was saying, I want you to thrive. I do not want you to survive, but I want you to thrive. So you realize that your mindset, the reason as to why we are here, is just to shift our mindset. To make sure that we align with the purpose for which we are called. Let me tell you, we have different things. What do you do? I want us to know, because we are all called to do different things. What do you do? Like chichokola, mulimugo.
Nengamba kanzireyo ntandike afresh.
Yes.
Yeah. Imagine someone abadde afuna 800, now she's going to earn 230. That really hits hard. Naye yesterday I watched colleagues abenasangawo nendaba omuwala nga naye yajja last year, but apparently she's a human resource executive. I picked interest. Ninga ne mugamba omanyi biri bye nali nkaaba nabivuddeko emitwalo 23 tugimmala nenga tegimmala, but I really want to work with you. I want to grow. Ne mugamba nyamba, hold my hand. If there is any space, if you have space, please call me. Ne oba ngambe kutypinga linnya lya muntu, call me, I type it for you. Let me do it for you.
Ooh, do you see that mindset? Do you hear that? Did that come from me?
Naye, we have ekitupushinga. Hilda, my son, pushes me.
Yep.
Kuba we natuula tajja kusoma. And then I was like, enyumba gye mbadde nsasula, because I was staying in Busaabala, nenga kanveeyo nzire okumpi to manage my transport. And then nabadde ndio someone calls me nangamba omanyi, give me your house. Nze nkuwe sente. Nenvaayo. So I am glad that nakyusizza ekirowoozo, because nangamba ntukolere emitwalo 23 tezijja kumala. I don't want to go to my mother. You know my history. I don't want to go to my mother.
Yes.
I want to maintain that relationship, but alhamdulillah, there is light at the end of that tunnel.
Wow. Now, that is the story of beauty in the rubbles. Yes.
Nalekeraawo okukaaba.
Wasonyiwa.
Nasonyiwa.
Thank you.
And I really, really, really want to take this moment.
Wow.
Hilda, thank you.
Wow.
Webale kunkwatako.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Wow. That is a beautiful story. Amongst the storms and amidst the rubbles and amidst the falling debris that she's going through right now, and I will make this statement that sometimes subtraction is not a loss. Sometimes it is a multiplication, but one that you have not yet witnessed. And once you can be resilient enough to know that success is not a linear, creating wealth is not a linear path, that I'm going to go from glory to glory. And I think I've said it before, that sometimes glory to glory does not seem like glory to glory. That is what we want it to be in our minds. That is how we envision it. Sometimes, according to God, glory to glory can seem like zigzag before you fully stabilize into the glory that He has called you to be. Because sometimes we go through these processes so we can be established, so that we can be refined, okay? And thank you for allowing that. And thank you for not crying. Let me tell you, tears do not do anything. If you're crying your tears, cry them before God. Your tears before God. And tell Him, this is where I am, but this is where you promise me to be. And I want to see that transition. And when I talk about cognition and mindset, I talk about game plan. Okay? I talk about a game plan. That there is never going to be a miracle. That right now, even if I am super anointed and dripping in the Spirit, I will not tell you that jobs are falling from heaven. They're not going to fall from heaven. Even the one of 200 and something, it did not find you in bed. You went out. No one told you to shift, but you knew you wanted to cut the transport cost. That is a game plan. That you know what? First half batukubye. Naye bwe baba batukubye ate tetudda mu second half nga tukaaba. Tetudda mu second half nga tubivuddeko. Let me tell you, players will have hope even in the last minute. You will see them playing their heart out. And that is why sometimes the game plan, if you lack the game plan, you will give up. But the moment you have the game plan of being calculative and knowing that this season is not a spending season, that this season is actually for me to accept the reality of what is happening around me, that I cannot take my child to an international school, that I have to take my child to a starter school, and that is not where they are going to end. It's very possible that Marseille, they can come back and go to wherever I want them to go. But this season demands that I subtract on whatever I have been doing so that I can be established. Nsinzire, that if I am to launch again, I have enough power and I have enough momentum and I have enough zeal to actually last me. Okay? So, your mindset, once I knew that, then I knew nothing could beat me. I remember there's something, Tim, we were listening to recently. I don't remember how that man phrased it. But one thing I know is I have lived that kind of life of. I think that is the point where we talked about there are families that tend to say that, you know, fete tulogwa. That kind of belief. And I think it was a pastor on radio that was preaching and saying that sometimes you see witch doctors. You know, sometimes we want people that do evil, we want them to die quickly. We pray for them to die quickly. And then they're the ones that live long. The mulogo kuchalo, they will live 100 and something years. But they will kill all the 30-year-olds and the 20-year-olds. And you will be like, but God is not fair. God is not fair. Why doesn't that woman die? And now it dawned on me, because this pastor actually explained it so well, because he said, you remember those that were in Hold My Hand, we talked about the principles of life. And we say that when you sow, it's automatic that you have to reap. Now, that this person becomes a principality because they have faith that I can kill everyone and I cannot die. That even if you do anything to me, it's never going to do any harm to me. It entrenches in their belief system that they become a principality, a power. And that is a principle that who you believe, just like the Bible says, just like your thoughts are, so are you. So if in your thoughts you are fortified, if in your thoughts you are solid, you feel I cannot be shaken, I am unstoppable, let me tell you, you're going to be unstoppable. You're going to be a force to reckon with. And I remember there's a time, I think it was Council Oscar, he was mentioning the time that the light bulb went off in his head. We were talking about it in the mentorship. He went somewhere, was it in Naguru? And he looked at all the buildings and he was like, "Nae mama, the people that built these buildings, are they with blue blood? Are they normal human beings like us?" And then he went from that place energized and saying, I'm going to do the same things. Now, do you see how you fortify yourself? You fortify your mindset, your cognition, and you entrench it with possibilities. You starve all your fears, and you feed all your faith, that your faith becomes a principality, that nothing can happen. Do you know that people that believed they would never get COVID didn't get COVID during COVID? Like inside of them, they just made up their mind, I am just not going to get this thing. So while the world was crying, they were not crying. They were just watching, and some of us were even limiting what we are looking at, because if you want to fortify your faith, you do not feed your eyes with everything, with every taka-taka. You decide and say, I want to build wealth, I'm going to follow specific people. I am going to befriend specific people. Because some of the relationships that are going to build you, write that down, you have to pursue them, because whoever is going to bring value in your life is busy right now. Whoever is going to bring value in your life is busy right now. There are people that call me, and maybe I will miss their calls, and maybe when they call me sometime later, maybe it could be even 2 weeks. That is how bad sometimes it can get. Or maybe I get back to them, and they're like, I thought you didn't want to pick my call. And I'm like, you know what? You would never have my number if I didn't want to pick your call. I would never give out my number if I didn't want to pick people's calls. Sometimes I get busy. That is understandable. And sometimes I will get back to you if I can. Or quickest, or maybe it's going to delay. Or sometimes it's going to necessitate that you call me again. But sometimes I also have people that I call and they do not pick right away. Why? Because they are busy pursuing their purpose. They are busy transforming lives. They are busy building companies. They are busy building multinational companies. Okay? So if wenfune entondo nemmera akasajja ku mutima nga gundi tachampa attention kirabika mama yakula nnyo. Now, that is when I am feeding my fears. That is when I start looking down on myself. That is when I think I am the grasshopper. You remember the story of grasshopper in the Bible? That they looked at the giants, and the giants had 6 feet and 6 fingers. And they were like, we are going to be eaten. That alone was enough to chase them away from their promised land. So they had another report. Until they were asked, whose report are you going to believe? Okay, so that issue of principality, I want you to build yourself and fortify yourself. I was poor, but inside of me, I knew that I would come up on top. It didn't matter when, how, I didn't know. But the mindset determines whether you will use your skill set, when you will use your skill set, how you will use your skill set, or if you will use your skill set. 4 things. Your mindset, you can be skilled. When you look at Gideon, do you know that Gideon was no one skilled him to go and fight? It's today that I realized that no one skilled him. His problem was a mindset problem, because he looked down on himself. But when the time came to fight, he actually lost, because he had 32,000 men, and he lost 2,000 men when he asked, if you're not ready to fight, please step away. And 2,000 men walked away. When they walked away, he led the remaining men to battle, and they won, and they triumphed. Now, that taught me, or that came to me, that sometimes it's not that you don't have the skill. Sometimes it's your mindset will not let you use the skill that you have. Or sometimes your mindset will procrastinate about you applying your skill set. Have you ever had an idea, like Coach Marjorie, have you ever had an idea in your mind, and then you look at your means, you look at your resources, and you're like, this is not for now? Do you know that it's not because you're not skilled to do it, it's because your mind is telling you, and it gets the best, even the presidents of the world. There is no one that is immune. So all of us battle through it, and we're like, okay, this, and you realize this is a negative mindset. I'm not going to succumb to it. I'm going to push it away, and I'm going to put my poster up there. Whoever, even if they come, 2 of them or 1 of them, so be it. If no one shows up, it's okay. Let's go. You put your poster up there. And before you know it, people know your brand. You have built your brand. You are making money, and you're transforming lives. You're being positive, and you're impacting the young generation. Why? Because you controlled your mindset and say that, yes, it's possible I don't have it all together right now. It's possible that I don't know what this whole journey entails, but if the journey of 1,000 steps takes 1 step in front, I will take 1 step in front. We will figure out the rest. So I want us to work on the mindset. Do you remember the 4 things we talked about? Your mindset determines if you will use your skill set or your competence, when you will use your skill set, how you will use your skill set, and if you will use your skill set.